Hello, it's Myozan Kodo here from Zen Buddhism Ireland, and we're continuing with our reading of Suzuki Roshi's book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And this week we're looking at page 71, Mistakes in Practice. Sometimes I'm asked, how do I know I'm making progress in practice? Well, I think one answer to that question is if you're still doing the practice, then you are. The key thing about sitting Zen, sitting Zazen, is just to sit Zazen, just to sit it, just to allow Zazen to sit you. This is the only thing. Once you are sitting and continuing to practice, that is the main thing. Suzuki Roshi, in a way, is talking about this in this chapter this week, Mistakes in Practice. The idea that we're hoping our practice will lead us someplace, or that we will see graduated improvements in our practice, which of course we may do. But this is not the spirit of practice. There are several poor ways of practice which you should understand. Usually when you practice Zazen, you become very idealistic, and you set up an ideal or goal which you strive to attain and fulfill. But as I have often said, this is absurd. When you are idealistic, you have some gaining idea within yourself. By the time you attain your ideal or goal, your gaining idea will create another ideal. So as long as your practice is based on a gaining idea, and you practice Zazen in an idealistic way, you will have no time actually to attain your ideal. So, Zen practice that is based on gaining mind, that is striving after enlightenment or some heightened state. This kind of practice is what Suzuki Roshi describes as impure practice. Our style of sitting meditation is called shikantaza. It's just sitting. So when you sit, you just sit. Nothing more, nothing less. Not looking for an outcome. Being present, here and now, in this moment, the only moment we have, this very moment. So when someone asks me, how do I know I'm making progress in practice, then one answer to that is, if you're still sitting, that is the answer to your question. As long as you continue to sit, this is the point. And Suzuki Roshi is highlighting in this particular chapter that when we want too much from our Zazen, then it will fall short. Our expectations will always be let down. We will want Zazen to be another utilitarian thing in our life, something that has a utility, something that produces an outcome. This is the kind of thinking that has got us into trouble all along, and this is the kind of thinking that we let go of, that we release in Zazen. This is a kind of greedy practice, as Suzuki Roshi sees it. It is when your practice is rather greedy that you become discouraged with it. So you should be grateful that you have a sign or warning sign to show you the weak point in your practice. So when you don't want to do the practice anymore, when you feel let down by practice or disenchanted with it, that's showing you that you have expectations from your practice that you need to release and you need to let go. Sit with no expectations. Come to Zazen empty-handed. Come to Zazen with nothing, not even yourself. So as long as you continue your practice, you are quite safe. But as it is very difficult to continue, you must find some way to encourage yourself. Sangha is key here. To practice in the context of Sangha with other people and with the teacher is key. The teacher will see mistakes you're making in practice and help you with those. Another mistake will be to practice for the sake of the joy you find in it. This is a very important point. As we practice, in other meditation traditions there are stages of practice, which we don't really have in the Zen tradition. We bring all those stages together into one. All those stages are present, but within Shikantaza, they are all one. So in the stages of meditation, you will experience physical joy, mental joy, bliss, and really when you just sit forgetting the self, this is sometimes seen as the fourth stage of practice, as Suzuki Roshi describes it here. But this is where joy, pain in your knees, whatever, is let go of. You've, in a sense, transcended that. So if you're continuing to practice, trying to recapture a joy that you experienced, a bliss that you experienced at a previous sit, during a previous meditation, then this is a mistake in practice. Again, as I said, you need to approach practice with no expectations. When joy arises, joy arises. When anxiety arises, it arises. When pain arises, pain arises. And when bliss arises, bliss arises. And when the self is forgotten, the self is forgotten. So, allow Shikantaza to be what it is. Release your hopes, dreams, expectations, and goals for your practice. This is pure practice. If you find some difficulty in your practice, that is the warning that you have some wrong idea. So you have to be very careful. But do not give up your practice. Continue. So the spirit of repetition, which Suzuki Roshi talks about elsewhere in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, is key. Practice as habit. You get up in the morning from your bed, you light incense, and you sit. Before you retire for the evening, you prepare your zafu, and you sit. This is just what you do. This is the correct spirit of practice. Our practice cannot be perfect, but without being discouraged by this, we should continue it. This is the secret of practice. So you will experience everything in Shikantaza. You will experience the various stages of meditation that are distinguished in other traditions. In our tradition, we don't really pay much heed to those stages. We allow them to come and go. We go through those stages and we just practice. Master Dogen makes clear in the Shobogenzo that practice and enlightenment are one. The enlightenment we seek is already here. It's not out there in some future, because the future is always the future. What we have is right here and now. And this is all we really have. And this is where enlightenment resides, in our practice. You should find your own way, and you should know what kind of practice you have right now. Knowing both the advantages and disadvantages of some special practice, you can practice that special way without danger. But if you have one-sided practice, you will ignore the disadvantage of the practice, emphasizing only its good part. So we can't just accept the bliss and joy from our practice. We must accept everything that contains that is contained in our practice. And what is contained in our practice is everything. Eventually you will discover the worst side of the practice and become discouraged when it is too late. This is when practice becomes difficult. This is silly. We should be grateful that the ancient teachers point out this mistake. So, when you become tired of practice, when practice becomes difficult and painful, when it's not just joy, but also difficulty, then this is when the true spirit of practice is most important, and that is just to continue regardless, to sit with Sangha, to sit with a teacher, regardless. In Zazen, we meet reality as it is, not as we want it to be. We want reality to be bliss and joy, and it is, but it is other things too. And these are the things that we must make peace with. Our Zazen makes peace with everything that is. Thank you. So next time, whenever I get round to it, we'll move on to Suzuki Roshi speaking about limiting your activity, page 75. And in the meantime, please sit. Sit every day. And keep going.